Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. We are home. We are home. Is everybody home? Good day. Today is Sunday. Oh, I'm grateful again. I'm grateful again. I'm grateful again. The blessing is just too much. Oh, I am so excited. We have our guest here, our special guest. Oh, boy, we have the brother here. You know, growing up, whatever you do, your uncles and your aunties, they will tap you on your shoulder and say, the sky is your limit.
Mm,
Sky is your limit.
mm,
Brother is here. The sky is his limit. He is all the way up there. So we feel like the Jollers, we're gonna hijack everything and take credit for it. So we're gonna
mm,
celebrate the brother first,
mm,
first and foremost.
mm.
And I'm back again. Mbal kontana. Nka falelo watu nka ala tentule. Na kebal ka foloko mansaya man susot mansaya mayasot na brother min nata bi Mr. Balde Samba Baldeh abe mansaya la America kon na Gambia dingolom nka ko you are welcome yena sijang. This is home. Relax and talk to your brothers and your sisters. Akonye no problem. Nka ko even Niman Nano, we the Jolas will subpoena you and just grab you and bring you.
Right.
So, Mr. Balde is someone he alonkai kujamale accomplished. He has accomplished a lot. He's an inspiration to us. Who travels, who leave Gambia and come to America or any other country and said, I would like to represent my people and work for them. You want to represent them. Hey, he's one of those people. His sacrifices both day and night. You call him, he's right there. You text him, he's right there. You email him, he's right there. He is the man of the people. But I'm not going to keep him long. So let's go straight to the discussion.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that excellent introduction. Looking forward to the
I'm
conversation.
coming right here. Mr. Balde.
Yes.
Mr. Balde, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Mr. Balde. Okay. Mr. Balde, we the Jolas hijacked you today. And we are excited to have you.
Absolutely.
I want you to relax. This is home. You've been doing this and doing it, but today it's a different game because we want to celebrate you first. This is Binto Media Network. We are Gambia grassroots, non-educated ones. Some are well-educated, they're on the side, but this Alcalo Muso don't have much. But we have good intention. We have interest for our nation. National issues, who will bring something on the table. People like you with the knowledge. That's why we invite you today. I'm honored to be sitting right here in front of you. You are welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Binte, for that excellent introduction. I am glad to be in the midst of the Jolas today. I also see that I'm in the midst of the Jolas, but it looks like we are owning them because your last name seems to be
But again.
So,
that's the thing, yes.
Yes. But thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation with you. I think as Gambians, but just as human beings, it is important. You alluded to education. It is important that people be well educated. But in the event, education is not everything. So I appreciate you acknowledging your audience, what they comprises of and things like that. And so I hope having the conversation in English will still be helpful. If not, I can also speak at least fluently 3 other Gambian languages. So if you are comfortable with that, here and there we can switch. But I think I can better explain some of the concept or some of the topics that you like to discuss in English better. But I think I'll give them justice in 3 other Gambian languages.
Mandinka?
So, feel free to switch here and there. If you think your audience would prefer certain things be discussed in a local language, let me do that. But I appreciate everyone tuning in, you for the invitation to come and have these conversations, and just for doing this to help enlighten Gambian people, but others who may have interest in the Gambia. And so looking forward to the conversation. Again, thank you for the invitation.
So which languages you comfortable with? Do you speak
If I
Mandinka?
say Jola, will you be surprised or no?
Mr. Balde, I heard you during your campaign. I heard you speak in other different languages. They are not Gambian languages. Which are those?
Eh, so let's do with Fulani, Wolof, and Mandenko
Okay.
for conversation, if you like, if at some point,
Yeah, Mr. Balde, which language were you speaking? They are not Gambian languages.
huh?
Which other language could you speak? I heard you speak in other languages. I was like, let me click again. Is that my brother?
So I try to connect with just people who are my neighbors, my community. I think language is a unifying force. I mean, it's a
Exactly.
unifying tool, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think, say, for example, if I'm in the midst of the Karoninkas or in the midst of the Jolas or even whatever tribal language, and I speak their language, they feel I belong more than if I couldn't speak their language. And
Exactly.
so for me, it's a tool of connection, but also a tool of finding ways to connect with people and identify with them and their culture or something.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Balde, when we publish our flyer, Gambians always go, they inbox, they ask. They were asking, who is this Mr. Balde? Who is this Representative Balde? That's what we want to know a little.
Yep, absolutely. So obviously, my name is Samba Baldeh. Generally, Sambas are also called Bach. It's like Bill and Williams and stuff like that. So in many cases, you'll see my name written Bach, but my name is Samba Baldeh. I am a native of the Gambia. So I was born in the Nyamina West area in the what used to be Makati Island Division, now Central River Division, to a nomadic family, obviously farmers and nomads and things like that. We went after cattle and things like that. So growing up in Choya, I started primary school there at Pinyai, and then later on moved to Banjul at Mohammedan School. That's where I completed my primary school. Went to Armitage High School for 5 years. From Armitage, I went to Gambia High School where I did my sixth form. And so from there was when I started working. I worked in the Gambia for at least 4 or 5 years before I left for the United States. I also started college there and all that kind of stuff. And so, during my time in the Gambia, I was also, to a very high extent, a youth advocate. I remember when the Gambia government or the military took over the country. One of the degree that they passed was nobody should sell newspapers, produce them or whatever. And I remember defying that with, selling Foria and others, at the Ministry of Education. But I've always been very active within the youth circle, providing opportunities. Started the Canifing East Youth Development Society at the Canifing Estate. Started a skills center, worked with the American Embassy to provide, training services at the community center and things of that nature. So I've always been there, finding ways to help, support, and all that. Volunteered with the Amnesty International Office and all this kind of stuff. So when I moved to the United States, I basically followed the same trend in terms of my social work. Started volunteering for Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I am one. The AIDS Network, and many other agencies, political agencies like the Democratic Party and other local democratic institutions and stuff of that nature. Along that, also started doing school here as well. So I went in for computer programming. That has been computer science has been my domain. So I've been an engineer for over 22 years and stuff like that. But it was in 2014 that when I decided to run for an elected office here in the USA, I mean, Madison particularly, at their city council. At the time, there were a lot of issues between law enforcement and communities of color. A lot of killing and shootings and, just a lot of disparities out there and injustices that I, decided to ask myself, what can you do about all this stuff? So I started reaching out. Of course, I've been doing this advocacy, but I had at this point started realizing that, advocacy put a lot of pressure on politicians, and in many cases that forced them to bring about change. But in some cases, most of the things that were happening between law enforcement and our communities of color was institutionalized. And the only way that can change was to really through legislation and things of that nature. So I started reaching out to some of my elected representatives, talking to them about some of these issues, how can we fix them? But in many cases, the response was basically the same old. I mean, doing the same thing, expecting different results was not going to work for me. So I decided that, what, I know this may be a long shot, being an immigrant with accent, a Muslim, a black man. It was going to be a challenge to run for any elected office and win. But I had strong conviction that no matter what, I should go in for it. And so this is how I decided to run for the Madison City Council in 2014. So I went after an incumbent who was there for 5 times, very connected in the community and all that. But in 2015 was the election, and I was lucky to win that election. And so that was the beginning of my political career. So I served at the city council for 6 years, during which time also I was council president, and eventually I was council vice president and eventually president of the council. So in 2019 also I decided to run for state assembly. An opportunity presented itself. I thought, that may be a bigger platform with much wider outreach for change and opportunity for providing services to my constituents, but also to the people of Wisconsin. And so I put in my heart there also, said, look, the worst thing, the biggest failure for me is lack of trying. And so, but I just don't try because I want to try. I try because I believe in myself that this is something I can do. I try because I believe I can succeed. And so I tried to run for the state assembly for Assembly District 48, which is the eastern part of the city of Madison. And so I was lucky, privileged by the constituents, the members of the district. They voted me in. And so here we are today. I represent that assembly district. And so I'm looking forward to really delivering the promises that I made to them, but also making life much better than how I found it when I was elected.
Okay, I'm going to change to Mandinka. Ntolia back home, nim mo fintita na akabe political kala. The family will have so much opinion. Some families will not even agree to it. So Brite is sita. Okay, ngana mind make up. I will serve my people. And you did go back to your family to reach out. What was their reaction?
So you want me to answer Mandingo, right?
Yes, that's fine.
So coming at the beginning, I can speak few Gambian languages or sub-regional languages and stuff. So I bring, 2014 ko mbelola pour que candidate pour Madison City Council nyento. Hanin na muso mafai. Moj mo mbama membe Gambia or Ngalonko, mol jamaye concept men soto America is mainly dulale meya lonko a dangerous tale. So man la fi mol yen hakilo falling pour nkana bori wala nkana lo electionola. So ngamen kedron ka bring in lodan hakilo do ko nyanta ka lo nyanta nyin mukule di meya lonko nyanta ka ke. Nga kumase pour ka process nyin ke ka kumase fo nga lonko futa da dulato me ya lonko say namuso na bama na badingol na terimal te murundi la no kom den nate kan nga fo ko nyin lafta nyine kela jamal bije ya mira ko samba nga mira ite iman kende wala mune muta ite poda africa le ibijang imu mo fingolti mu misil molti wala wo sifa ni lota nyin na fanangi bela time le tardendredro bari ite winnola So kay ko, you know, Jamal Bijen ko look till believe momenti coming ku membe nyato akole aku dimao ni ima kata ibukalom foisa keno foita keno so ko alnga kata alnga lam fanna ko nyimmu kule di me alon kon sa keno so keta ten you know na terimal na dan support na musul na badingol na molbe particularly Wisconsin jang wo wato Madison pour nga fintinte dama immigrant le munti momen boda gambe inata jang so ibe funtita you know ye makoy you know be blow muta nyofe nga campaign ke nata na win aka koleyale you know jama ni you know ifango mang lo kuke ilafta menkela iterimal walla ibadingol walla imodol se bondino jele bari man la fi nu moen bondi je wulatin na kabrimba commencé la juna man la fi ka funti mol kan pour nga fo nga lon ko sign ka fo diamond ko there's no point of return so kabrim kuda da wodo den finti da mol kan nga fo ko alingata nga nyinki bari you know be mol konto na wodo baake me ya lon ko gambianol lem immigranol lem muslimol lem americanol lem ye you know me ye muta afe
yalo na niko America iko Mr. Baldeh afinti tanani be murundi lela okumadoka iko Mr. Baldeh muluntaone abota nan dame fangu mba google le malo fanga abota nan dunia mun tole immigrant le iko kefi ngole fanam kola iko ay accent le fonso aman na culture fangu muna ya lonne ba Mr. Baldeh manke mo politician popular imbati Mr. Baldeh maybe ala jibo mankuli ya kani min kanalo Mr. Baldeh ite mun nyimbari yalbe ite taino nyadi le killing ko nyimmol min be Wisconsin ye trust yala karteche kakadila
yeah so you know dunia follow for life fanna you know momoronding inyanta lale fanna adun sometime kaje ko you know wo kalai fanna aka mankile ntolla community to watinin wadi so be femfen ke kan jama I mean almost nsafu wadi nkalam fanna le follow nkalam fanna le adun amanke ko kam fanne nene kon latam fanna nkalon ne ko nyinde mu kule di meya lon kon sakeno ngalon ne ko mumo fingolti America jang ngalon ne ko fanan mumisin molti America jang ngalon ne fanan hani mo kilim man choya long ni ko moli choya iba mila ko ika Chinese kangole foe Jamal bije ni ko fanan nyamina iba mira la ye you know ye German kangole foe bari hani wo even dom boda sade o mento maybe man tambi mo tan lulu la wo sifal bari wo mo tan lulol fanan ngalon ko imomoti maringol ngalon nyamina momenti ngalon Gambia momenti ngalon Gambia non momenti so latam fanna then secondly ngalon ko latam fanna nyame fanan na terimal fanan belalan lalan kan wole nyama iben trust la wole nyama na badingol anin na immigrant community na Muslim Christian community molbe belalan kan wole nyama so wolatin nan hanyita ka finti ka foko nyinde abe kole yala le bari nte lata ko nin ngake mbe gagné no la je so wala yen dundi ako nyinto ibe mom fem ke kan te believe tamen na dunia kono ilay fan na folo ni mo fingolti lafi mo fin yala yeke mo fingoti janning ibe lafi la kake kudodi so ka ko ne ko approach wo nyama bari ni approach wo nyama fanan anyanta kala ko me yalon ko abotela sondo mole kono manki ko iba fo kan don because isa fonu bari iba fo kan because to nyale mole bela hakilo
wala mtonyati bari ni ko sai itala palaso yeminke alda yeminke as alda Madison kono anila nyim palaso do ni be nyin ila palaso fola moye Gambia mum palaso sifa lambe kumandila no nyati
yeah so Gambia America jang yalon palaso comme maybe in Georgia Atlanta itebe damen to mafa ni mo be city council odo as ke ya fay aldo o yefendo fay So bari a momenti Gambia wole mu comme KMC be nyame ila council so. So all the pose in Madison, Wisconsin jang wole mu already, so council olem what. Then representative Gambia wole mu comme député mol men kalua ke député bungol. So jam fanang representatives wole kalual ke ila state sole aning banko nyimbe United States wole be DC. So menu be ila state capital wole kalual ke ila state sole. So ni Gambia le mi ben kumandi la député olti. Jannimbe ke la député ori ben kumandi la ko council lem comme ka fu nyamen to Gambia.
So mbe comparison kala a little bit because left to cool senendila niko politiko jam akija niko politiko mol buka understand inte nata America ja ite nata America ja the last thing inte be mi mira la fam ko Gambia no fam bi jere mi be politiko ko na politiko la interest ni nata ko Gambia dika fole je ite inila accomplishment ol be yela soto bulo be munati nebita ifandundi la politiko ko politiko nten kuti ni yalon ko Monyanta mira, a successful person should even think about doing it. But aside, ntolo representative for nkakarte fa nyame in Gambia. Aninjam lefte wala companion in terms of ikam factor lejibe minike influence.
Yep. So maybe I can speak a little bit more in English to be.
Now let's go to English. Yes.
Yes, the political part of it.
Political part of it. Yes.
Yes. Yep. So obviously, it's first of all in politics, whether in the United States, particularly in the United States, I would say, you don't go into it to enrich yourself. You go into it knowing at your core that you like to service others. You go into it knowing at your core you want to bring about change, not only in your district but in this world. So for me, politics is about when I am 80, if I get to live up to 80 or 90 or 100, where I am completely, totally old, physically I can't do much. And I, debrief myself on my life. What have I done to bring about change? What have I done to contribute to make this world a better place? Some of the things that I would assess myself. Like I said, as an engineer, software engineer, I would have been making hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. I was making that. So to cut that short to basically making about 30% or less even of what I was making is really more about as a human being. What can I do to make life better for people is my commitment. But also as a Black person, look at the challenges that we are faced with in this United States. Look at the challenges that we are faced with in the continent of Africa. Look at the challenges that we are faced with in the globe, I mean, the whole world as Black people. And so are we just going to continue to sit there and say, look, this was colonialism, this was slavery, this is just institutional racism and stuff like that? Or are we going to do something about it? I want to do something about it. And so that is the biggest reason, honestly, why I am in politics. If I was just to pursue money, I would have been at a different space right now. But I think we are all challenged to the challenges of this world, to the challenges of this United States, to the challenges of the Black race, to do something. The world is a very competitive and difficult and complex place. If you are not at the table to fight for some of these things, they will be there for centuries. And so the biggest reason why I am in it is to bring about change, but also to highlight the plight of African Americans, Black people in this country, but around the globe.
So what do you think Gambians, the factors they look at to vote for someone that will represent them? You are from home. What do you think they
so it's difficult. So about I think about 48% of Gambian people are not Western educated. And so that speaks to about half of the country. I am not sure of what the percentage is, but if 48% plus of the Gambian people are not Western educated, the remaining about 50% or so may just have gone to secondary school, high school, and that is it. Because growing up in the Gambia, until the time I came back to the United States, we had just started the University of the Gambia.
Yeah.
So opportunity to higher education was not very available. So many people go to Forever College, Ghana and Nigeria and places like that. And so our population is not very Western educated. Of course, you have Islamic education and all this other stuff. Any education, sometimes you don't have to go to a Western school or any other school to be smart and intelligent and be able to make good decisions. But politics is a Western concept. The way that we do politics is predominantly democracy, and the way we do politics in most of the world is a Western concept. And so if you are not well equipped to understand that concept, the way it is written and conceptualized in the Western way, it becomes a challenge as to how you really follow that process and get good product out of it. And so I think it is a big challenge in the Gambia for people to make very conscious, well thought through decision as to who their representatives should be. Yeah, the world is, like I said earlier, is a very competitive world. And so it's also very complex, as a matter of reality. Simple stuff that appears simple on the face of things can be very complicated if you look at the details of it. And so my advice to Gambians is always to really elect people who can articulate their issues, who can advocate on their behalf, but people who understand processes. The Western world is well established in terms of many of these processes, and sometimes they are very complex and detailed and stuff like that. So how do we really elect people who represent our interests? One way to really do that is to understand what politics is about and the role and responsibilities of the people we elect to represent us. There are tons of challenges, for example, not only in Gambia, but in Africa. But Gambia is the last country that I visited in terms of, politics. Say, for example, the roads network are not good, particularly in the Banjul Serekunda area. I met many politicians and they complain about it. They also, people complain about the healthcare sector. People complain about all this stuff, particularly elected representatives of the people. So I asked them, what is your role? Good number of them do not know that, in fact, they are the one who are responsible of fixing it. So electing people who understand what their role is, who knows how to go and do their job, is very important. In many cases, it has to do with Western education. In other cases, it's just being somebody who is intellectually curious, whether you have been through the Western education or not, but as a human, with brains and stuff like that, we should be curious about stuff. I think it helps us to be creative. And so I think, we should always be very thoughtful in who we elect. So people complain about things are expensive, commodities are expensive, all these things are expensive. All those things are under your control. So when it is election time, at this year in the United States, we go before our electorates. Even at the local city council here, you have to debate your opponents. You go on television and articulate why you are running, the issues that you are running on. How are you going to address those issues? I think that should be constitutionally required something. In the United States, it's not constitutionally required, but it has become a tradition, a culture. To an extent, you just cannot basically run for office and get away from debating the issues that you are running on. So I think we should find a way to institutionalize this. And the only way some of these democratic institutions can come into play is when everyone is a player. So I cannot just sit there and blame the president of the Gambia or the president of Senegal or the president of whatever African country that you are not doing this, you are not doing that. I have a role to play also as a human being who live in the Gambia. as a Gambian who live in the Gambia or even abroad to do something about some of the democratic shortfalls that I see in the country. If I am doing that, how can I hold anybody accountable to their own role and responsibility? The president is just one person in any country. But we have tons of ministries and departments, all responsible for different stuff and are supposed to deliver. How do we hold them accountable? The representative of any district is just one person, but they form a group of legislators. How do you go after your own legislator to make sure that they are providing, for example, if I live in the Nyamina area, or let's say the Jahali Pachal area, and since Jawara time, we've been hearing that rice production will be independent. It's now over 60 years. And rice is not even basically remotely grown in the Jahali Pachar area. And this is clean water.
It's even worse now. It's worse. It's worse now.
How do we go after our individual representatives and hold them accountable to some of this basic stuff? If we all want to go after the one single president who hardly even see what we are talking about, we will not make progress. But if you go to the Ministry of Agriculture, demonstrate if you want in his office or her office 24/7. Go to the Ministry of Tourism and say what we see in the tourism sector we don't like. We are not getting tourists. Go to agriculture, go to natural resources, go to whoever NAVEC is under, go to lands and all this stuff. Let's hold each other accountable. We have to build the democratic institution for us to sustain it, but also live in a democratic society. Like I said, the concept as it is now is a Western concept. Every culture from time immemorial had their own governance structure. But when we talk about democracy as it is, politics as we practice it now is mainly a Western modernized concept of governance and stuff. So how do we really make that system work for the Gambian is to really educate ourselves around issues and how we advocate around them.
Exactly. So just like you are saying, I'm going to take you back. Your work kind of was similar. It's alderman to whatever what you are doing now, legislation right now. So you say it's similar to National Assembly and Council. Every time we talk about development, just like you said, we point a finger at the central government. We say the president, the president. What do you think should be the responsibility of KMC and our local governments, KMC and area councils?
So you're asking about the responsibility of KMC.
What do you think should be their responsibility?
Yeah, so the local government were created by a local government act, and that local government act spelled out what their roles and responsibilities are to their jobs, but also to the people that they represent. So in the United States, the government, because it's a federal government, we have local government like municipalities, we have counties, we have state, and then we have federal government. Yes. Each of these units are created with their own responsibilities. They don't cross carpet. So for example, immigration is predominantly 100% a federal government issue. That does not mean state has no say. Somehow we can advocate and go after the federal government as to how we think our immigration laws should be spelled out. So the local government is supposed to be the first contact of citizens in terms of their problems. If the roads are not built, at least in the United States, that's how it works. In the Gambia, everything is the central government. I cannot even imagine. So just to go back a little bit, the Local Government Act was enacted by colonialists.
Yes.
The mentality, the situation, and everything that existed at the time is totally, completely different from what sustains now. As people, as human beings, as we evolve, as time goes on, as we change, as we expand, as we grow, as all these things happen, we always need to check, to have see is what we are doing meeting our needs? So I think at this point, there's a need for a review of the Local Government Act. I cannot imagine any elected member being supervised by non-elected member. And the mayor mentioned this at not, sometime about 2 or 3 years ago. So the reality is, even at the local level here in the United States, elected members of the council are not supervised by anybody. They work within the context of the act that created them. That act is very clear as to what their roles and responsibilities are. I cannot imagine prior to an election, you tell elected members, we will set you aside and put an interim government to run the municipality, people who are not elected, to run a municipality whose members were elected until after election. So these are colonial mentalities. These are things that were put in place, either, in some cases by Jammeh to be able to control, the political landscape. And in other cases, these are inheritance from colonialists who were also interested in controlling all their territories, no matter what independence we gave them. They still wanted to make sure that they have a way, if anything was to break loose, that they're still in charge. But is this the government, the local government, that works for the Gambian people or for generally any government? No. Even here in the city of Madison, when I was at the city council, we put together what we call the government reform structure, a committee that came together and said, look, we've had this government structure for at least decades. Let's review it and see if it is still serving the needs of our community. The city of Madison, for example, has grown exponentially, and then the immigrant population has grown. So many other diversity has come into play. Is this the structure that works for us? Why can't Gambia do that? The structure of the Gambia government itself should be reviewed. I mean, mainly in the West, but I would say particularly in the United States, when you run for president, you identify your running mate before you get to the ballot. Who is going to be your vice president and things like that? Is that the structure that will work for Gambia now or no? I don't know. Do we really, the setup that we have, is that the one that still works for us? Why can't we have a committee to review it? So most of the things that we do are still based on colonialist ideas. And these ideas were to control us no matter what we do. Even if they say, okay, Gambia, you got your independent Senegal and all this stuff, they would have control when things go south. Let's review those things and see how is our workforce set up. I went to Gambia generally. I'm not getting into politics, but we definitely do need a lot of review. And I think if we have to build our institutions to support what we call our democracy, we need to do a lot of work. Work is difficult to do. So me and you would have never done this interview if we didn't work towards it. If I didn't call into the Zoom link or whatever link you sent me, if you didn't set up the flowers and ask people to tune in, they'll not tune in. So work is work. Talking is talking. Talking do not do anything. So what we are doing here is talking. It's not actual working. So we need to really review our governance system. I saw a lot of cars. It's like Gambia or Africa, I should say, I don't know, Gambia particularly. It's like a junkyard for old cars from Europe. Every corner of a street, all the streets are full with junk cars. You talk to the municipalities, they tell you we cannot do anything about it. How can you govern a city and you cannot do something that minute about your own city? So this is not about blame games, but these are things that maybe people who serve in the government, who advise the government itself is not exposed to how to fix this stuff. They don't know. It's not that they don't want to, but it's just that it's fixable or something that we can do about. So local government is the first contact of, the electorates. If your water bill is high the first place you should go. But even in Gambia, that's not how it is structured. The water utility service is a central government thing. Transportation is central government thing. Road networks is a central government thing. Even street lights is predominantly central government thing. So if we have to have local government, what is their responsibility? What is it that they are supposed to do that they should be held accounted for? It's just to run markets? I mean, and what other thing are they supposed to do so I can hold them accountable? I elect them, I pay their salaries. So if my road is not good, where should I go? If there are no electricity poles where I am building my house, no water supply or anything, where do I go? These are infrastructure that is available as part of development, at least in the West. You know, so if you have to live quality of life and that is not being provided, where do you go? The first place you go is your local government. And so I think we need to review the structure that we have and weed out whatever was a colonial mentality that is not working for us and see how we fix it. Many of the things that we still do are based off of, you know, half-baked understanding of our own system. The Constitution, for example. Yeah. Anytime there's overthrow of a government, anytime there's newly elected constitutional review, how can you review the whole constitution all the time? The United States of America, of over 50 states plus some provinces, the constitution was only amended about 15 times. Imagine that. But Gambia, anytime there's a little bitty change government here, the whole constitution is on the table. Let's review constitution. Then there's no need for a constitution. Whoever comes, let's write something.
Let's change it
and move from there.
Yeah.
So look, some of these things are colonial way of controlling us, despite saying you are independent. We got to free ourselves of the concept of how white people thought we should be governed for the rest of life. But also we must understand that time has changed. We must understand that the challenges of now are our challenges. We cannot tie them to colonialists. We cannot tie them to the West or the white people. We should take responsibility. And no government should be afraid to bring about these changes. Let's look at what has happened over history, over the last 100 years since we started getting independent in Africa. If you don't do the right thing, you always end up at the wrong place at the end of it. So do not be afraid of what is right. Do not be afraid of what you think will help your people. Do not be afraid of what you think will help your country. Do not be afraid of what you think will help the Black race in this war. And so that is for everybody, whether you are the government, in the government, or the ordinary citizen. We all have a responsibility to move our countries forward. So basically, local government responsibility is, you know, local roads, and these roads can also be, you know, identified. And again, this got to be worked. So, for example, the Banjul-Serekunda Highway seems to be where Gambians are traveling. So that should be primarily the responsibility of the central government. But let's say the road from Manjai Kunda to Senegambia is predominantly people who live in Manjai Kunda and want to go to Senegambia and come back who uses that. So whatever municipality that it belongs, that municipality should be the one responsible for that road. This coastal road is people who go to work to Banjul and come back to their very expensive homes. That should be the responsibility also, partly, depends on where you are looking at, should belong to the municipality, the other part should belong to the central government. So we must have to look at these things in detail and review them and open up to people telling us what they are thinking, what should work better, what should not work better. We should not be afraid of these things. But anytime you sit with many of us, is either argument or you say something and you start fighting. It will not take us anywhere. We got to sit over these things, find a way to really, really analyze it and connect it to us. Like most of what people do is around culture. Culture is around how you live life in the moment. And so how do we really work out these processes to make sure they're reflective of us, our way of life, and how to service that so we live quality life?
Thank you, Mr. Baldeh. That's very important. We will pick up from there. We have to make changes and we will discuss it. We will reach out to the people. Gambia should come together, just like you said. We have to free ourselves from all this laws that we have in place, and they are not even necessary. To win an election, to be somebody's representative, to be people's representative, you have to have a skill of communication. Our representatives, they do not communicate with the people. Honestly, Gambian representatives do not communicate. If you are a minister, you are a minister. Somebody will call you, you will say, well, I will call you back. Email, they do not respond. Ambassadors, they are in different countries. Immigrants will have issues. There's not much response. They will not respond in time. They will not. I mean, it's a serious challenge for any Gambian outside the country or inside the country. Our representatives, they do not communicate.
So
with that, how do you think we need to change the narrative so that they will not be afraid? I don't know if they are afraid or they don't want people to challenge them, or they do, we don't know what it is. But what would be your suggestion?
So the concept of checks and balances is very important. The idea of accountability is also important in any democratic process. So how do you check each other? How do you hold people accountable? Western governments, and all government generally is set up to have checks and balances. That's why we have the 3 branches of government.
Yes.
So that when I legislate, I have to send it to another branch of government to say, yes, I agree with your legislation and I'm gonna approve it to be law. So it goes to the executive, and then the judiciary is there also to make sure that whatever we are doing is not violating anybody's right or any, constitutional provisions and things like that. So we have those concepts. So how are those concepts working is something that we need to look at. The other thing is accountability. So here in the United States, the way the federal government is structured, you talk about cabinet ministers. So those people in the United States, Joe Biden, for example, cannot just go pick Bintu and say, oh, you are going to be my Minister of Agriculture or something. He can pick you and then send you to the other branch of government and say, Bintu is the one I want to be my minister of something or part of my cabinet. Process his application, approve it or don't approve it. It's up to you, but I want her to be approved. So that is checks and balances, but also accountability. So if you are part of Biden's cabinet, or before even you get there, if you are not just the right person, they go through your track records and see, is this the right person? First, is he qualified? Second, is he going to do the work the way we want it to be done? And so if you are there, you know you are held to a standard. If you do not perform, you have to come back through the same process. And this time around, things may be different if you don't. But they also have the capability to call you back somehow. Though all those things are built in. And so embassies, in the case of the Gambia or any other country, report to the foreign affairs minister, and then to maybe the president or whatever. If those people are not meeting the needs of their constituents, we are their constituents. So the ambassador in DC, I am that person constituent. It is up to him to know what I am up to and what the Gambian community here is up to, and reach out and do their duties to make sure that whatever they are assigned to do is done. If it is not done, how can me and you hold them accountable? Is one, to be able to go either right or go to DC and demonstrate, or let the Ministry of Foreign Affairs know that they are not doing what they are supposed to do, and all this stuff. Again, that's why I said the democratic process needs everybody's participation. It cannot be a blame game that, this is not happening and you are sitting folding your hands. All of us has a responsibility to do something. So in the case of the Gambia, you have the National Assembly. Here in the United States, Congress can call anybody to account for what they are alleged to do, just like all these committee hearings on different stuff. The National Assembly should be able to do that. They should be able to call the Ministry of Finance, for example, and say, we see that there's a lot of corruption that is going on in this country. We see that up to now, 60 years after independence, basically, we still do not have a payment, an electronic payment system where people collect taxes. This must change and give them timeline. But that must also goes with accountability in terms of budget. You cannot just tell the Ministry of Finance or whatever, we need an automated system for people to pay their taxes, or KMC to account for all this stuff. You got to budget and tell them, here is the funding for you to go and do it. Until now, there's no mapping in the Gambia. I've seen a few things where they put numbers that nobody can read. These are geocoordinates numbers. How can, in this day and age, everybody is on social media? Technology is nothing to invent, basically, now. From rocket science to just wheelbarrow building, the science is there. It's just to yank it and put it locally, localize it. We cannot even do that. What is our priority as a continent? What is our priority as a country? What is our priority as a people? Again, when I say all these things, I'm holding myself accountable to all the problems, and each and every one of us must hold ourselves accountable to these problems, and then we go through the ranks as to who is directly responsible for what. But there must have to be checks and balances, accountability and stuff like that. If people don't fear anything, nothing's going to happen, there's no accountability, they will just do whatever they want to do. One thing I observed, basically, dealing with some of the issues when I was in Gambia, is everybody is a lawmaker, is a judge, is a juror, is a everything. Wherever you go, people just open their mouth and say, no, this is how it works. And they cannot prove it. They just tell you because they want to tell you that. And that is what is convenient for them. That must have to change. Look, let's have a system. Let's have things in place that speaks to addressing our problems. You cannot just go to any office and whoever, you go to these offices, many times you find military men standing there, the one telling you in and out where to go. Everybody's making rules as you meet them and as stuff. There's nothing. So if you ask me about when I come to the United States, how do I become citizen? I can tell you all the processes and it will be that. Nothing is changing that. If you ask me, how do I go get me water, or how do I get electricity in my house, or how do I get gardening done in my place, or how do I make so a pothole is fixed, or all these things are done, I can tell you with certainty where to go and what to do. And that process will not fail you. In Gambia, every day, and this is not Gambia alone, it's mainly Africa generally. Just look at from south to east, west to north and all that. Nothing generally is in, you can say, okay, this is how it is done and that's how it is done. You go to one person, they give you 1 million rules and laws. I sent a tractor, just this trip when I went to Gambia. Before I get to Gambia, the tractor was already at the ports. I get there, since before I get there, they started the process of getting the tractor out.
Here we
I
go.
was there for 2 weeks. Plus, I came back to Gambia. It took another 2 weeks. So 2 plus 2 plus 2, like 6 to almost 7 weeks to get that tractor out. Anywhere I go,
you are even lucky to get it in 7 weeks. I'm sorry.
I have to pay a lot of money as a matter of reality to eventually get it out.
Yeah.
And even that the battery was stolen. And I cannot hold anybody accountable to stealing my battery. How can anything be stolen at the ports? So these are problems. And I'm not saying this being anti-government or pro-government, whatever. I am an American politician right now. And I've said it very clear. I'm not interested in Gambian politics, but I'm very interested in what happened in Gambia. And that includes politics. And so the reality is that if I have to feel good about my country, if I am an ambassador here, there's nobody in this American world who does not know me and know Gambia. So it is important for me to be proud of my country, and therefore to have a system in the country that I can be proud of is my responsibility. I could care less who's the government, who's not the government. I want to hold the government accountable. And these are some serious problems. I'm always thinking, how do I hold this person accountable who wasted my time for 8 weeks? How can I hold this person accountable who stole the battery from my car? How can I hold these people accountable who are making it super expensive for anybody in Gambia to access food and be able to travel one place and the other? That is my responsibility. It doesn't matter who the government is.
Mr. Balde, exactly what you said. The reason why we invite you, Gambia is for all of us. So America here, we are putting that on the side. So you need to give us that knowledge. They are watching us. People are listening. This information you are giving us, we need them to listen. We need to make some changes. How do we make changes? We have to hear the ideas from people like you. So that's why we are. Let's talk about corruption. We can. I don't even know where to start. Almost all our sectors are infested with corruption. A country of that much of corruption, what effects do you think it will put on the progress of that country?
So I want to be very careful. So corruption can be very subjective.
Yes.
A lot of people will tell you America is very corrupt. A lot of people say Gambia, Africa is very corrupt. And so to me, corruption is more about accountability. How do we hold each other accountable? I do not have data, but I do believe that, for example, if the whole of Kanifing municipality is collecting money, and corruption don't have to just be the government. Individual, me and you, can be corrupt towards the system. And so if they are collecting taxes manually, Samba has to go to Fatu's home to collect these taxes, or Fatu's store to collect whatever sales taxes or whatever. If Fatu is able to deviate, or Bintu is able to deviate from that, then Bintu is corrupt. How do I hold Bintu accountable? But if KMC also goes to Fatu and Bintu and collects that money, and because there's no accountability, they only presented Fatu's contribution or taxes, then that municipality is also corrupt. But corrupt can be outside of financial setups also. So who is the government employing? And who are they not employing? All these things can be corrupted. Corruption basically, like I said, can be very subject. So how do you fix all these things? We have to have processes in place. We have to have a system in place. And no system or process is 100% perfect. But at least this is how it should work. So if there are loopholes, you find a way to fix them. If there are problems, you find a way to fix them. But if you don't have all these institutional tools to guard against all these loopholes, then it just becomes a free fall. Anybody can be corrupt. And I see that not only in Gambia, I also visited Nigeria, for example. I saw the corruption at the airport. Who is pulled aside, who is let go, who can check on time and who cannot check on time. So all these things may be minute, but they have significant impact on quality of life. When I recently visited Gambia, if I was able to accomplish one thing, to let's say go visit a family member, that was the only thing that I was able to do. A whole day, despite having my own car to travel around. So that by itself, to a certain degree, is corruption. Corruption in the sense that we are paying all these taxes, you cannot provide the infrastructure that we need to live a quality life. But people must also be educated about quality of life. Because if you are okay that a dusty city, where whatever you breathe in and out is dust, is okay, there is a problem. The city should not be dusty because roads are bad and that's why it is dusty. If nature comes, yes, we can deal with that. So we must educate our people also about quality of life. I know people who were doing businesses based off of the internet or having access to internet services. They cannot do that because of the poor network. Gambia still is the only one country that I know of where you cannot leave people voice messages on their phones. Why can't you hold accountable the businesses to do what is right so that quality of life is there? If I call you in the Gambia and I cannot get hold of you, why is it that I cannot leave you a message on your phone so that you can call me back? I don't have to text you. I have to. So all these qualities, the thing with the West, whatever inconvenience them, they find a way to fix it. For us, anything that inconvenience us, instead of working hard to fix it, we'd say is Allah, is God, is something that we cannot even see or imagine what it looks like. We have to hold ourselves accountable. These things are our responsibility to fix. God is not never going to come down to say, I'm going to fix all these problems for you, or that I'm not fixing them for you so that when you come to heaven, I will give them to you. These are our worldly responsibilities, and we must have to work hard to fix them.
Cash transaction in the Gambia, in terms of collecting taxes, even government transactions, some of their dealings is cash. Technology. What would you recommend, and how do you think your recommendations should be implemented to stop this cash issue?
So, like I said, from rocket science to building wheelbarrows, the technology is out there. You don't have to reinvent it. You don't have to go and write the code on your own. You just customize it to meet your needs. You now have a banking system where you can go to an ATM in the Gambia and withdraw money. Why is it that we don't have a system where you can go and pay your mortgage, where you can go and pay your water bill, where you can go and pay your electricity bill, where you can go and pay your taxes? Why don't we have that system? It's because people are not asking for it. And if you don't ask for it, then government priorities become something else. How do they enrich themselves? How do they provide to their constituents whom they believe are their biggest supporters and things like that? And so it's up to us again to really invest, but also hold accountable those institutions that are providing the services. Gamtel, for example, anytime you call Gambia, is either the network is not good or some craziness like that. How can the network not be good for hundreds of years? Who is accountable for that? Who is responsible for fixing the network so it works? It's not like the technology is not there, but nobody's held accountable. I have a cell phone and then somebody is providing me service in the Gambia, but I called somebody within my own network and I cannot hear them. And nobody's holding that service provider accountable for poor services. When are we going to hold each other accountable? It's the challenge. So like I said, the technology is out there. We just even now, at one point I was in Gambia and I was trying to locate somebody. It took me at least 3 hours to be able to know exactly where this person is located. Imagine that. Google Maps and all this stuff is just a copy and paste basically and customized for the Gambian people. And you have maps, you have streets. This is not a technology that is rocket science now. It's out there. Why is it not the government priority to be able to do that? Why is it not the government priority to be able to automate these systems? So people pay taxes. If I want to get my tractor out, I don't have to go to the ports or anything. I just pay online and say, I've paid whatever fees you ask me. I'm picking the tractor tomorrow. Why do I have to go to 10 different offices and everybody telling me their story? It's because we, the people, also are not holding ourselves accountable to our responsibilities. Our responsibility as part of a democratic process is to make sure that our elected representatives are doing their jobs. We are not doing that as a people. Everybody is busy blaming the president. The president don't even hear us talk about this stuff. So he's thinking, everything is well and good.
Mr. Baldeh, thank you. It's the responsibility. But you work also. Time is running. I got a few more questions here. You also work with the minority. Healthcare in this country is skyrocketed. It's expensive. Gambia, in view of the Gambian economy, how do you think Gambia we need to do to improve our health system?
Mhm. Yeah. So again, it goes back to responsibility and accountability and who is responsible for what. So, and also institutions. In the United States, we all know what Obamacare was all about, is to make sure that every American have access to healthcare. The way it works here, employers
Of.
are generally providing insurance to people.
Mhm.
So that when I work for your company, as part of my employment is to get healthcare. Of course, there are what they call co-pays, where you have to pay something also, just on your own towards your insurance. But at least you know that is affordable, and that is something when you are sick, no matter how sick you are or whatever the bills are, chances are that you can afford your co-pay, and the rest of it will be changed, it will be covered by the insurance company. So institution building is one thing. It is lacking in many parts of Africa, including Gambia. So government has a role. We form government to do things that me and you as an individual or even as a business cannot do. That's why we got Obamacare. In the Gambia, growing up, the only hospital I knew of a good hospital was Royal Victoria Hospital. It's still the only hospital, basically, in terms of the government thing. I mean, they've built all this other stuff, but you go there, no staff. The nurses are called doctors. Even the first aid people are called doctors. And so, more the reason, in my opinion, we has this very high mortality rate. The people we call doctors are people who take care of equipments and stuff like that. So people are dying, going through surgery, and all these very, settled form of treatment are still complicated in the country, and people are dying from them. And so the healthcare sector in the Gambia, and I, read sometime here and there online, and I saw what Baba wrote about the scanning machine in the Royal Victoria Hospital, Baba Gali Jallo, where it's only one, and that was put there since colonial time immemorial. What are our priorities? Who is paying attention, and who is holding each of us accountable? That is the problem. We cannot fix the healthcare sector if we don't have a system in place where the private sector is accountable and the government is doing their work and the citizens are getting their services. Nobody can afford to pay for medical services on their own, no matter how rich you are, from Gambia to all over the place. It's the government that should come in and help and put systems in place. Employers should be able to provide insurance to their employees. But tell me that is the case. I do know some people who works in the central government in Gambia do have insurance. But how
Yeah.
many other people have access to insurance? But also, even if they have insurance from the government, what is that covering? Where is that covering? What hospital? What is the process of if I go to Ahmadiyya Hospital, for example, and the service I need are not provided, and I need to go to another private hospital? What is the protocol of moving from one place to the other so I get the service that I need? This is institutional building. These are processes that we need to put in place. So every Gambian knows what it means when I am sick, where to go, how do I get from one place to the other, what am I expected to pay, what am I not expected to pay? Are there any community hospitals where the government put in money, but those community hospitals are not for profit? Are there individual hospitals that has components of community service and or community providing services to the community at no cost or things of that nature? So it's very complicated. But again, the system as it is now is based of a colonial system where only the elite class have access to a few things. How can we change all these things if we are not reviewing our governments, the way they are structured, if we are not building institutions, if we are not putting processes in place that explain everything clearly? If I ask you now, if I want to be a Gambian citizen, you explain that to me. You cannot explain that to me.
I
If
don't
I
know.
ask you today, how do I get a Gambian passport? You cannot explain that to me today. As simple as those things are, I can explain to you to the last point on all categories, whether you just immigrated, through just jumping the fence or whatever they call them, you come to America, I can tell you how you can become a citizen. If you got a visa and came here, I can tell you. If you came here as a student, I can tell you. If you came here as a married, I can tell you each immigrant part in this United States. I
Yes.
can tell you how you can get a passport in this United States and how long it will take you, depending on what kind of passport and how soon you want it. I cannot do those simple things in Gambia. And I know in Senegal and other parts of Africa, you cannot do it because the system is built to be corrupt. So that when I come to somebody who wants to get money from me, would tell me, if I don't sign this or if I don't do this, you cannot get them. But I don't know. The only way I can do is maybe if I'm in a rush or really want to get this done, corrupt you. And if I don't want to corrupt you, then you become angry at me and just start to delay stuff. This must change. The government is nobody's government. It's all of our government. The problems that we are addressing, the services that we are providing to our citizens, are services that we are obligated to provide. They are not for you. You do not own them. When people come for services, service them. Don't look at them as anything, as if they are your subject. If anything, you are their subject because they put you there and they pay your salary. So these are some of the problems that we have. There's no accountability. There's no transparency. And all these things are built to help corruption.
Let's go to education before I let you go. What field of studies do you think Gambia needs right now so that we can at least catch up with what's going on in the world?
So, we've been making reference to technology and how it has, basically is out there. So the STEM system, the what you call the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, are very important areas. The way those things are set up is to give you life problems that are imminent or we are dealing with in the moment. And so I think developing that sector, that way of thinking and educating our kids is good. The way the American system works is that, yes, they do have these exams at the end of the year and all that. But when you do any of these STEM, programs, you realize that in many cases, you do a lot of labs. So if you're doing computer science or whatever it is, every week you do 2, 3, 4 labs. These are practical things. If you go to the field, when you are employed, you are going to write codes that say this, that do this, that ask the person this and that and that and that. Practical learning, things that you do practically that is useful to you. In many cases, the way the educational system is set up in Gambia and many other African countries, as a matter of reality, is just to pass exams. And that's why many of us also here are struggling to function in this country. You see Gambians, Africans with PhD, doctorates and all that, but they cannot even push a wheelbarrow here in the United States. But when they go back to Gambia or Africa and you say, oh, I'm Dr. Samba Baldeh, I have PhD in whatever. So the rest of it do not matter. Is Samba Baldeh has a doctorate degree, so let's give him this big position. And Samba Baldeh goes there, he don't even know how to analyze a critical statement or to write something about anything or to solve that equation or anything of that nature. So we glorify these titles, as opposed to really what skill set do we have. Like I said, work is difficult, but it's important. If you do not work, nothing changes. If you do not work, nothing changes. Things remain the same. We have to work. If we were not talking throughout this period that we are doing the interview, people would have never had anything. So if you do not work, things do not happen. So that is the problem. The education system, when I was growing up in Gambia, we had this, primary, high school, secondary school thing. That was changed by Bakari Dabo, and he brought in this. Bakari Dabo was the minister then, of course, Jawara's time. They brought in this. Was it Jawara time or something like that? Also, Jamme.
Almost the last year of Jawara, they brought this middle school system thing.
Yes, then the middle school system came. And what I have realized is that everybody just go through the process. I have seen people, it's unfortunate, and I don't want to speak low on anybody, and that's not what it is, just a question of really, if you have to graduate our people, let's graduate them at a practical level, places where they can really function. But now, when I was going to primary school around primary 4, primary 5, the village head or the chiefs sometimes will call you and say, Samba, come and write me a letter to the somebody in Jara or somebody in Badibo or somebody in Serekunda. At primary school, I was able to write good letters. Now, even just texting or communicating social media of people who are supposedly university graduates in the Gambia, simple spelling, they cannot write, conjugate and all that. So, our system, but then at the end of the day, what is important is, are you passing your exams or not? So we just go and memorize something and go and write the next day. We don't know practically how that works. So having a system, a practical educational system, like GTTI does. So you go there, for example, you do electricity, it's practical, you do electricity, and things of that nature. So when you are studying law, do be practical, give people scenarios, and let them come before people and explain in a courtroom how they are going to do it. So this STEM system, look at what is happening to India. Almost all my 20 life working in the 20 years working in the private sector in the United States, overwhelming majority of the people I work with were either Indian, Pakistanis, or Chinese. What is it that African pride itself of in terms of really a domain where the whole world go to them in terms of technology and all this other stuff? The only thing they come to us is natural resources. Take those abroad and sell them back to us at exorbitant amount. They come for our cocoa, go make coffee, and bring us the garbage back in terms of Nescafe and all this foolishness. So Gambia, for example, is about 2.4 million people. It's not complicated to develop that country. It's not complicated to put a system in place that can give our kids very qualitative education.
Exactly.
But who can do it and who is doing it? Who is making it be done? So, again, I go back to all of us having responsibility in moving the country forward. And so it's not only the guy who is the president or the ministers or whatever, all of us has a responsibility. If it is not working, let's fix it. How do we fix it? Is holding each other accountable. How do we hold each other accountable? The government has a lead in that, because they have to build institutions and provide a platform where that can happen. And I keep telling people, look at history for the past 60, 70 years of all the African leaders who refuse to listen to their people and do what is right by their people. There's nothing wrong with dealing with these difficult problems. Come to the table, argue it to the best of your ability. But at the end of the day, if you believe in the democratic process, then let that democratic process take place.
Do we need to change our curriculum? When I was growing up, I was reading, let's say, history. I was reading Mali Empire. Mali Empire. I was reading Napoleon. I was reading Jane and somebody. You know. Do you think our curriculum needs to be revisited again?
So I think we have to have a curriculum that is based on hands-on problems. If we are teaching construction, let's teach our kids how to build the road networks in Gambia. That is non-existent. If we are teaching about engineering, let's teach our kids how to build skyscrapers in Gambia that meet the geographical and environmental needs of the Gambian people, not something, say, in California or something. So our educational system must be based on problem learning and fixing. So whether you go to the high school system or whatever the grade system that they have right now, if it is not practical, it's not going to serve the people. And so no matter how we change it, if we are not realistic with that, it got to be practical. then it's not going to work. You graduate people, you call them doctors, they don't even know how to inject medication into your arm. Exactly. You graduate teachers who don't even know how to spell good morning. You graduate engineers who don't even know how to design anything. You graduate software engineers who don't even know how to write a code that say hello world. So it got to be practical. Whatever the curriculum is, whatever you call it, when Bakari Dabo came with his educational grade system, he said this, he said that, this working, it worked. Again, we are copying what is happening in the United States, what is happening in the UK, what is happening in all these Western countries. When are we going to be Black people with a culture in Gambia? The Gambia culture is similar to Senegal, but yet different. And it is different from the rest of the world. When are you going to build a system that is us reflective of our Gambia problems? So that it's not reflective of Senegal problems, it's not reflective of Nigeria or Ghana or America or wherever problem. It's Gambia's problem. We got to build a system for us. It's not a system that we are copying from some other countries, because our cultures are different. Our needs are different. What make my quality life in Gambia is different from what make my quality life in the United States. How do we put something in place that serves the needs of the Gambian people and therefore high quality life? Is the challenge that we are faced with, and is the challenge that all of us should hold ourselves accountable to.
Mr. Baldeh, we really appreciate your comment. This is great.
Well, thank you.
But my last question, I never asked nobody about climate change, because I don't know much about climate change.
Yes.
Even I saw it on CNN, I was like, okay, what are they trying to say? There's fire somewhere in the corner. Is the water? Is it earthquake?
Yep.
It's a global concern. We are getting to a point, it's a serious global concern.
Yep. So the whole concept to understand climate change, the best way to explain is that this world, the climate is getting warmer. And trees, human beings, plants, every living being sustain life under certain conditions. So you cannot live continuously under a temperature, or in a temperature of 150 degrees, you will die. You cannot sustain yourself under a temperature of minus 10, 20, consistently. So we depend on this planet for food. We depend on this planet for oxygen in and out and all this kind of stuff. So when the planet gets warmer, some of the things that you grow now in Gambia and feed off of it, you cannot grow and feed off of it in Gambia. Some of the things that we grow in the West cannot be grown in certain parts of even the United States. Because say, for example, Wisconsin may be doing apples and all this stuff. Apples can only be grown in certain weather conditions. So if you're getting colder or hotter, then we cannot grow them. So we either go to California or other places. And if California is getting warmer and warmer, then they cannot grow those there either. So what is happening? Food scarcity. And you know who will be impacted the most is Africa. Because every human being has this instinct in them to take care of themselves first before they take care of the other person.
Yes.
And so if growing food is becoming a problem, so that we cannot even grow our own food and eat it, we depend on imports in the case of Africa. So those who will be exporting it to Africa, if they don't even have enough for themselves, be well assured Africa is going to be extinct first. The people in Africa are going to die first and suffer first before it goes anywhere else. So global warming is a problem that we must have to pay attention to, because it could lead to our extinction. I mean, I'm saying this now, but if we don't do something about global warming in the next 30 years or so, revisit Africa and see how we look like. The good part of the northern part of Africa is desert, including part of Senegal now, and encroaching into the Gambia. So in the next 30 years, if we do not do something about global warming, not only will we not be able to get enough food to survive, just to survive, the forests that we depend on will disappear. The animals that make the ecosystem and all this other stuff will start to disappear. So global warming is a serious problem. At this point, we may not be able to do much locally because we don't, have these industries that pollute the atmosphere and make it warmer. But we can advocate. That's why we have the United Nations. That's why we have all these international institutions for us to have a say, vote, and push for something. In the Gambia, for example, put a law, a rule that says you cannot bring in cars that are older than 10 years, 15 years, so that all this junky stuff, at the end of the day, where do you recycle them? They are not good for the environment. They are polluting the environment. It is like a dump site. The Gambian street, Serekunda, is like the dump site of the Western countries for old cars. So these are things we can control. We cannot create a recycling center, even a dumping site like a landfill we don't have in the Gambia, much more a center that can recycle cars. So all this machinery is going to be all over the place, polluting the land that we grow our food on. So it is important that we have rules, we have regulations, we have standards, we have processes, we have procedures. If we do not have that, we are talking about the Gambia, but the continent of Africa is doomed to a big failure, but eventually non-existent. And you say, these people will say, this guy's crazy, doesn't know what he's talking about. But growing up in Choya, Nyamina, in Gambia, when we grow this season food, we will eat it until the next season food is available. We move it out of our current storage, put it to another storage, and bring in the new food. Now, after all this stuff, you grow all this, you will be lucky to feed yourself off of your produce for 3 months. For 3 months. Growing up, I almost never saw a bag of rice, except for there was a hunger in the 1980s, at one point. I never saw a bag of rice in my village. Everything we ate was from the rice field or from the farms. That is not happening now.
Mr. Baldeh, what you are saying, let me add something. The farros that we were using with my grandma, when I went back home, I visited those places. But the salt water has taken over. Everything is like, if you see how the farros change into. So what measures do you think Gambia need to start doing? Nothing much you said, but what do you think?
So, like I said earlier, we have Jahali Pachar, but we also have the River Gambia, which in many cases is clean water. Like I said, I went to Armitage School for 5 years.
Yes.
We were drinking at the river all the time. We go fetch water there, of course, here and there when there's no water supply. But it's clean water. Build an irrigation system that can make it possible to grow rice 24/7. Build a system that can help us be sustainable. The whole coast from around the Makati area all the way to Basse, the river, is clean water, drinkable water. Grow bananas. I see Indians now owning farms towards Basse and growing bananas and sending them abroad. Not me and you to eat. Why is it that we cannot put these systems in place to be able to do this? You can now grow rice. It's been engineered to an extent. You can grow it for about 2 months and you can harvest it. Why can't you build a system where you can do that? The Gambia, like I said, is a very small country, so its development and institutional building shouldn't be that complicated. So, it's a question of really commitment by the government, but also having the fear that their people will hold them accountable. In the absence of that, this is what we will deal with for a very long time.
Thank you so much. We kept you more than the time. Right, Mr. Baldeh, I tend to ask you this question. why did you run on the Democratic ticket? Why Democratic Party?
Yeah, so I think we all have values. So as a human being, naturally, I am inclined to like things and dislike stuff, identify with certain things and do not identify with certain things. So I think my nature is that of somebody who believe in fairness, somebody who has compassionate for others, somebody who feel like enough is giving to me and I should find a way to give back and all this kind of stuff. And so I think my human value as a human being, individual, align more with what the Democratic Party believes in as opposed to the Republican Party. That does not mean I am 100% Democrat or 100% independent or 100% Republican or anything of that nature. But the majority of the way I see the world aligns with how the Democrats see the world. And so more the reason why I am a Democrat. That doesn't mean the Republicans do not have things that I really that I really admire. There may be here and there a few things, here and there and all that. But it's my view of the world, but also, my upbringing, growing up in Africa, in Gambia, where I saw a lot of people struggle. Those people being, getting support and help, immigrating in this country, getting the opportunity to be elected here and represent people. Where does the Republican Party stand in terms of even people immigrating here? If it was not the Democratic principle or the Democratic Party principle, was I going to be here? Would I have been elected? We had liberal ideas that this globe, in fact, is a global village. This globe, in fact, is all of our globe. We created these borders by ourselves. Gambia and Senegal at one point didn't have borders. It was all Senegambia, whatever you call that region. And all these things, they were little empires here just for their own regional governance. But the world is our world. If we believe that there's one God, why would God say that I must have to live in Gambia, not in Senegal or America or China or India, wherever? And so therefore, the fact that the Democratic Party, the liberal ideology, basically equates everybody and give opportunity to everybody without how you think, how you pray, where you came from, where you want to go. I think is the reason why I am more aligned to the Democratic Party principle than I am to the Republican Party principle. Imagine in this country, for example, even Black people were not recognized as 100% full person.
Yes.
People fought for that. We were not allowed to vote. Even women were not allowed to vote. We fought for that. And now the Republicans want me and you not to be able to vote. The Republicans don't want to see people who look like you and me in this country. The Republican Party see me and you as alien, undocumented, as opposed to just human beings and stuff like that. So all those things matter. The Republicans don't want me and you to be able to vote. The Republicans do not want us to fund public school where majority people of color, but poor people go to. The Republican people don't want us to reform the prison system so that we are not incarcerating people who smoke weed in the state of Wisconsin and they go scot-free in Illinois. So these are clear black and white differences. And so to me, they align with the way I grew up in Africa. I grew up in a village where if lunch was ready, it don't matter where it finds you, you eat with those people. If you don't have food, you can come to me and I'll give you food. If my kid was not doing right by you, you have the mandate, the right to correct that kid and help her be a better kid. That is what our democratic values are, as opposed to some of these Republican values. And so I think this is one reason why I am a Democrat. And I'm not saying Republicans are overly, everybody who's there is crazy knucklehead, but, it's up to people to justify why them as Black people, knowing what the Republicans say about Black people and all this stuff. As a Muslim, as a Christian who is an immigrant, and Christian went through the same crusade in this country when they started immigrating from Europe. And so there are tons of things that I cannot just see myself aligning with the Republican Party. So this is why I am a Democrat. But being a Democrat, I'm also very independent-minded. Those who criticize me here in the state of Wisconsin and in the local community here, is that Samba is strong-headed and he is very independent-minded. He does not listen to anybody. To a very high extent, that is true. If I have to represent people, then I need to be independent. I do also understand I am a trustee representative of the people, and so their input, their feelings, their thoughts is very important to me, and I listen to that. But I cannot listen to you being elected for a different district and tell me what to do in my district. I just don't do those things. I have an independent mind, and I always process things in my own mind and do them the way I am convinced by myself is the best way to do. Noting that I'm a trustee representative of the people, so that their input and their thoughts are also important in my judgments and how I vote and things like that.
Mr. Baldeh, we appreciate you.
Thank you for the invitation.
I don't have anything else to say, but all I will tell you, we will bring you back over and over and over, and we just praying for you up there. Just believe that your sisters and brothers, we are not too many. Our population is not much, especially in the Gambia, in America here. But we are behind you. Mandinka Sulu say, it's a sembendano.
Yeah, so no, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation. I enjoyed the conversation that we had. So, it all boils down to, what are we doing to help the situation in Gambia? What are we doing to help the situation in Africa? What are we doing to help the situation around the world? But we also live in this United States. Our kids are growing here. We are also bringing our kids who has a mixed culture. They grew up in Gambia, but now growing up in the United States. So we have a ton of responsibility as our communities grows to come together and be part of this community. You cannot live here physically and live in Gambia mentally. We cannot, mentally, it cannot just work. So there's a way to live here mentally and physically and be able to do something in Gambia to help that situation, in Africa to help that situation. The challenges back home are all our challenges. The challenges around the world, particularly to people of color, is all our challenges. So every day when we get up, let's reflect on what our role is in this world. What can we do to better this place? We've heard Martin Luther King and others say all this stuff. So let us all find a way to contribute. Mandela was sitting in a prison cell for 27 years. The only way, in my opinion, he was able to do that is because he was committed to doing something better for his South African people, but Black people around the world. And so if we all get up feeling that way every morning, it doesn't matter where they put you or what they do to you, you will survive it and be able to do something that help make this world a better place. So thank you for your outlet, for doing what you are doing. And thank you for to your audience for making the time to listen, tune in. It's unfortunate that we didn't have Q&As from them, but I like to take questions from
another time, because today you are really busy. I gotta let you go.
All right, thank you, Binda.
Yeah, you are really busy. I would have opened the line, but another time. This is home for you, so this is home for you. I'm not worried. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Oh boy, Mr. Baldeh, thank you. Oh boy, we had a great conversation with him. All I can tell him is just thank you. The reason I bring Mr. Baldeh in here today is because we have Gambians out there with the ideas, with the knowledge, and they can also contribute. The discussions we have they might not be practical immediately on the floor, but we have to gather this knowledge from different people. The wall is moving. The wall is moving. The wall is moving, therefore, we need to bring our people that are part of that wall that is moving so fast and tell them, hey, I saw you in the train. The train was moving so fast, but your people are still behind here. What is the idea you have? What is the idea the rest of the world that you are in with have to tell our people to join the train? That's why we have to bring them. Binto Media Network, we will also try to reach out to people that can say something and contribute something, and they have the knowledge, the ideas. This place is not personal. Mr. Baldeh, just imagine. He came from Gambia. The village that he even came, I don't know the village. Just imagine that. And I'm from Gambia. He came with every barrier on his way. He climbed up. He studied software engineer. He climbed up. He said, let me go serve my people. He became alderman in Madison City. He said, well, I want to be up a little bit more. Wisconsin State Legislature. He's a representative. Don't you think if we sit him down just like we did, we will hear all that he was saying? He said responsibility, accountability. Gambia, we need to put that in place. He also said, those laws that we have, those are colonial laws, and we should also pay attention to those laws. We should. They have to change. We are holding each other down. We are tying each other down. And we will call ourselves, well, we have to develop. We have to develop. We have to develop. There are some things that are there we need to deal with. Our laws have to change. Responsibility, accountability. I appreciate everybody. This is the end of the show. Thank you, Mr. Baldeh. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I thank everybody. Binto Media Network. When you have, please share our conversation. Come back here next Sunday. We will be back as usual. Yes. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. We will be back next Sunday. Minala jam back. Mr. Baldeh nata janin kachata. Ako kale jaman leben na Bangkoka. Follow lual mini bije wala nyanta falin. Lual jaman le bije nga falile. Nyin lual nyanta dolu falin na. Bankol bitakan ne. Nka mol mini choose represent. Ala nga fere dolu faiba. Ika represent. Ni ma londo soto. Ima idea soto. Ala nga fere dolu fai. Sometimes in Savoy, your palazzo di binto la mankara. Inate palazzo nyinta ya di la min. Nko e PhD la soto. Binto fong wole fong be palazzo manage la no di la min. Sometimes then intellectual or fana mang kuja malad. But inte ngamirako. Karandiro le nyanta continue. Refreshment or nyanta o mol train. Let's say ninga deputy select this. Ninga on the 9th. Nga dipitele tombo wo dipitele nyanta molle samala na mini yalon ko be sindila le tek ye train ya fo ko ifele dipite bu moto ja inata nyinnel la jam amanka ko because ita ka president wala support inyanta anything atay me ngomen samade tinyanta o sign amanka ko because ita mo opposition old nim fe mo fe nata bawe tamal la fi wonya ton kol ita nyanta o bayla wonte min bela mol na fala min bela mol na fala min tela mol na fala hani ka jamala support kana dunota carte fayo député carte fayo président carte fayo mo jelo ko patiol la bare député carte fayo wo manyen na ka kela pati kuti ni de alonko ite be MPP ite fo ya alonko ni ala tema MPP e millonde wotete na fala no wo député bungoto bare jikita ko ya millonde PDOIS wala be na fala carte di wala kana pati fasa andito fo ya lo ni mansata la tema ko ila pati moli e mindila wote ina fala député bungoto kana carte dia that's what it is nata député carte fawlo wala nyante kala na mentality jamale ben na fala noje political party dole bije family yala no ko ni lillahi ala tema ibe candidate o min di kan ni molla iman qualified ita do ko nola bare yo candidacy dealer because ito ya kat partiyo ele mbe lebulo minna mbe wala partiyo iko ya kat partiyo le wala ne o palaso dealer ni da ya kat partiyo bare moli yalo no ko definitely hani la parti moli yalo no ko ni tata député bungot je manke ka jisuma binan ka di mola liberali dula ite ku katala je partiyo na the same thing ye push iko ko al menina tala by force ndetambila ndeta alin kana molu compensate politically alin kana compensate alin kana palaso di mol bintola because binto nal tata rally la alfu tata farbaka benne cin dima al tabaliye al kana woke al palaso di bi la minila mi yalon ko ite fo yalon no ko nada da nyim palaso abe ku katala la moliyele wala ben sambala say ntolla kale dula be mu mun tolete nyin député bunko ntolla kale be abe bo wala dul wali min kadadaje mimbe ke kanje we will not move they hold us stand still so natoli mo sambana mi yalonga ba fala president baro yesa I sign do ba fala no sa because it's against President Barrow over na yasa so we will be on a standstill for another 5 years natalo ta ye nyada natal ya tampila wolo bala another 5 years ye nyada natal ya jibe for if there's no difference 5 years is too much so come back so binna so banta but ni alayake next Sunday do not miss we will be here the Tarajang next Sunday as usual the kacha sambana be panelo sambala nang be mol sambala na mini alon ko be kacha kala with good ideas be kacha kala nyijam din député ko fonga kacha ning nalla pati e modi yalla sateto mi alon kala mallafi al kana carte di al kan independent candidate olot alla banko alla distrito ni e modi yalla MPP e modi yalla UDP e modi yalla PDOIS e modi yalla GMC e modi yalla al mallafi la nyim pati yolu be CA ye modi yalla mini alon kala mallafi ali al nyaka sibe aliye kafu aliye independent olonde aliye adunde député bungoto mi yalon ka capable ta be palaso ni ta fenkala so mbo kacha sambala na next week alkanamis la baraka Mr. Baldeh kay for ngaten tunga jay ala barak saja thank you ala baraka diba thank you all very much mbal konton mba mobe konton you know na boss manjang ala baraka sanyang ala baraka ikafanya yaku ala baraka yaku baraka thank you ala baraka ka jakalle mol min ka fake account. If a woman can sit here, manya fango biti, nte sita jam, mbedi ya mulale, ite ke kananto, ibela laranda koto, iman kanya laranda fango doron koto de, ito fango purka kela ila account, ima keno, ima hai, ima ijote yat. So, it take a fake account, I can suffer okay anyhow in the end. You be finding in color, Tariko betting in color. It's a Tariko, more better than Taylor Nonya. A canoe minka see keyboard, Hana to, Abuka cannot. I don't know what is the fear, but we want to change. But most of the people there on behind the fake account. And them are fake account members. I don't command the fake account members. So, Sanya, I don't understand Gambians. They will create. I think they still think Jamaica's around. You know, every Jamaica still around. Keta la baraka. Yo, next Sunday, mbinala le janna kote. Tolum bijando kwal. Manta personal sambala na moye jam mbuka oke. So banko untolle ko lafta do ko wala sula tamin na mbola kachala wala fanam binala jam. We are here. Yes. You know. Jamme ala baraka. Nim momo lafta information o moyla mimbe nafala be banko nafa. You come here. But anita lafta drama la molbe nyo siso mutala. Pass into media network don't go provide or service or provide man qualified wala fam so I love you nkalo kun kandindela but we are still here until next Sunday. Allah Alien subscribe. Sing Bamba to Bamba Mbara. Sambetela Bamba to Bamba.